I went to Walmart.
There you go.
I want to hyperventilate and pass out.
I'm going to do it now.
You got nothing on me.
You can't stop me.
Welcome back to another episode of 1980s Now, a weekly examination of the importance of 1980s pop culture and its influence today. My name is Will, and joining me, as always, are my friends and co-hosts, Kat and John. Hey, guys.
Hi, guys.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Happy Halloween, I feel like saying. You know, well, we're this is the second week of October for us, I think, right? It's the second? Maybe this airs in the third week. I don't know, whatever. We're deep into Halloween. And for some reason, I'm thinking of competency porn now. I can't. I'm sorry. It's just going to be a whole.
When are you not?
I know. Well, working with you guys, it's like watching competency porn, really. So there you go.
Competency.
Yeah.
Come on.
We're deep into a Halloween season here, and I really haven't acknowledged it. You know, I mean,
That's a good
I
point.
usually start celebrating at the beginning of the month, and we're a few weeks in here.
Wait, we talked about Max. The
Oh, that's
Halloween
true.
decorations
Yeah,
last
that's true.
week.
Yeah.
And John burying himself in the front yard.
Yeah,
in the front yard.
Oh, you're
Sure.
right. You're right.
We've touched upon it.
That's right.
We talked about how Will puts razor blades in the apples, all the fun stuff.
That's right. Yeah.
We all had our own stories. Did that make the show? He might have edited that out.
Yes, I can't put crimes in the show.
Oh, I see. Statute of limitations being
criminal
what it is.
efforts. Yeah. Hey, in addition to hosting to his co-hosting duties here, John also hosts his own podcast, Gen X Grown Up, where they probably talk about Halloween all October. And our show sucks. Whatever, John.
I said none of that.
Okay. Wow,
Welcome to Walmart.
I was so proud of myself getting like, where there's a guy, a middle-aged man blacked out on the floor. Just step around him. He had a really strong Southern accent before he passed out. It was weird. I was so proud of myself getting ready, having the show completely ready by early today so I could do this Halloween thing for my, my daughter's school. And I didn't write my teases. I didn't write what the show is about. So
That's an absolute lack of competency porn right there.
this is the equivalent
Is that incompetency porn? Is that a thing? I don't know if that is.
Yeah, there's a porn for everything. So, I mean,
It's just like you're so inept, it's fascinating to watch.
yeah. That is probably a thing, right? That's like when guys are falling down doing skateboard tricks and landing on their balls or something, right? I mean, you see that. Like, they try to grind and they land on a handrail.
Isn't that Funniest Home Videos?
What? Yeah. It's incompetency porn. Yes.
That's
Now they just call that TikTok.
Anyway, speaking of Halloween, because it is my favorite holiday, I think. I mean, Christmas and Halloween, it depends. For different reasons, I like them. But on today's show, we're going to be talking about 900 numbers in the 1980s. And look, there was tons of them, but the ones that I took advantage of most were the creepy ones that were available in the late 80s during Halloween season. So we're going to talk about those. But before that,
Yes.
let's see. I'll just tell you. Before that, we're going to talk about, I don't know. Heather Langenkamp wants to be in another Nightmare on Elm Street. And so,
Take your time with this
else.
because I'm having a hot flash. So I need a minute.
Oh, really? We have it on tape?
Oh, yeah.
Guys, we shouldn't have talked about porn before the show.
I'm
Everything's
hyperventilating.
becoming
I'm
a porn
hyperventilating.
now. John's hyperventilating. Kat's having hot flashes.
You can't do that here at Walmart, ma'am.
On today's show, we're going to talk about the actor whose dream it is to return to a nightmare.
You're going to have to go outside.
How Bat chose his Bat favorite Batmobile, and how Satan is still running
Is Will
the
still
media.
talking?
Can you not hear me?
He's here.
I'm really wondering. Hey, before all that, though, wanted to make a brief announcement. This week, we're going to have a special bonus episode. Keep an ear out for that and an eye out for it because there's a video component to it, although we'll be publishing it in our podcast stream. It might be more interesting to see it over on YouTube where you could actually watch the shenanigans there where we are visited by our new friend, Durandi, who is the owner, the cultivator, there's a word for it, like when you're curator. Yes. The curator of the largest collection of Duran Duran memorabilia
In the world,
and
apparently.
we talked about some of his items of, that he has in his collection. But even more exciting to me was Kat opened live while we're speaking with Durandi 3 posters, vintage posters from Duran Duran that she received from a friend and had never opened. She didn't know what was in it. And it's kind of cool what happens, I think. It's not an Antiques Roadshow moment per se, but it's really fun, and it was really fun and exciting. So
Speaking of competency porn,
Yeah.
that was an example.
Right.
Oh, yeah, there.
it was. It was. It was super fun, and he's my new favorite person. So
yeah.
We can hear you, Kat.
you're my old favorite people.
All right. I think that'll be that. All right. Hey. You're my old. Wait a second. Huh? What did I miss? Is Kat still?
You heard it right.
All right. Hey, let's get caught up on 1980s news. Now we got to figure out. So we got to decide what day trivia is going to be at the end of the month. But it's so close to Halloween because it might be on the 28th. I think is the Wednesday, or the 27th is a Tuesday.
Boo.
We should make it into a Halloween party somehow, right? I mean, the question should be horror movies, Halloween type songs, horrible tragedies that happened in the 1980s as history questions. I don't know.
And you can't watch the stream unless you have a costume. I think that's required.
Yeah, John, I was thinking if there's a way that we could, several months ago, I co-hosted this party for Tom Higginson's birthday, and it was a release of a new single. And they were able to have like dozens of people on Zoom, where you could see everybody and then they could just zoom in on somebody or whatever. We got to figure out how to do that because it'd be cool to do that and maybe, give away a prize to people who showed up in costume. You only need something from the chest up.
Pretty much.
I mean, if you really zoom in, you just need like a mask.
Right.
But yeah, come in an 80s, quote 80s costume. That'd be fun, right? I already got an idea of what I'm going to wear.
I'm sure no one would do anything untoward on camera during the stream.
John! Is it because I'm not going to say it. I'm not
suggesting someone should. I'm just saying they probably would.
We could count on somebody.
This week in 1980s news, as she explained to Entertainment Weekly, an original Nightmare on Elm Street star wants a Halloween-style sequel. So, we've got this Jamie Lee Curtis-led franchise, Halloween, nearing its conclusion. And the original Nightmare on Elm Street star, the original Nightmare on Elm Street star, Heather Langenkamp, says she wants a sequel similar to that of that other iconic series. John's already shaking his head. What's happening?
Of course she does. Oh. Is that all you have to do? So it's an article if somebody just says they want something?
I guess
it's a whole news article.
I guess it depends who you are. But I guess. To your point, John, I marvel at how these people like at Screen Rant, Entertainment Weekly. Look, we use a lot of their information because how they squeeze a story out of a quote.
I'd like to do that. Well, there's a headline, right?
Yeah. Oh gosh. And now I'm going to just rely on that news coverage to make our story here.
No problem.
Anyway, for folks who don't know, and this is where we get this is to beef up our own story here. You guys know Nightmare on Elm Street, you're probably a big fan. It was a film that came out in 1984. It was huge. I don't know that anybody could have anticipated how big it would be. Wes Craven, who directed it, had some other success prior to that, but nothing like it. Or probably since. It's
even I saw it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Did you see it at the time?
Not in the theater.
No.
But
right.
I guess when it came on cable, eventually.
Yeah, cable or VHS or something.
Yeah, for me, I think it wasn't the first horror movie I had ever seen. But for me, Nightmare on Elm Street, that film was for me the one that made me want to see other horror movies with with a greater interest than I had. And so then I was seeking them out and seeing them in the movie theater, where prior to that I'd seen them only on VHS when our friends we would sneak into that section, in the summertime and get 3 movies for 99 cents or whatever.
Well, that's like a golden era of franchise horror, right? Between Halloween and Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. And look, Nightmare on Elm Street has just as much like 80s horror street cred as Halloween. But I mean, this girl is no Jamie Lee Curtis. I mean, there's a reason that she was amazing in that film as one of her first roles, and she continued to have a huge career beyond that. And so there's a reason that Halloween, going back to Jamie Lee Curtis, is so popular because it's Jamie Lee Curtis. But I don't know. Laura, what's her name? I don't know what she's done since, but sorry, Will, you know all the celebrities. Maybe you know, but
wait, who? Laura?
What's her name?
Heather Langenkamp?
Sure,
Heather.
I don't even know her first name.
Oh, no. I've been trying to get her on the show. John, you're really fucking it up for me.
No. You took her last name and made it into a first name. You turned Langenkamp into Laura. And,
my point is, Nightmare on Elm Street, sure, see more of that. That makes sense. Robert Englund's still around. He could be in it or be a cameo or whatever. But I don't know if they're going to have a long-lived reboot franchise like Halloween did.
Yeah,
I guess here's not a counterpoint necessarily, but a lot of the Halloween franchise is garbage. And a lot of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise is garbage. So anyway, in that sense, they kind of balance out. And plenty of them don't have Jamie Lee Curtis either, you know? And maybe that's why they suck. But,
and Halloween survived those garbage sequels to then come around to get back to its roots with Jamie Lee Curtis, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know if I don't know if the other franchises are too tarnished at this point with all the crazy crossovers and Freddy versus this guy and stuff.
Would it be too contrived? Probably.
Well, yeah, and
a good writer could fix that.
It would have to be because the biggest hurdle they'd have is, or certainly one of the hurdles they'd have is the fact that Nancy was killed off in the third film,
right?
Dream Warriors, while protecting Patricia Arquette's character. So. Look, they could retcon that. They retcon most of the Halloween since after the first one for this latest trilogy. So, but John, talking about how messy it's been. So they've had five direct sequels, one meta spinoff, which was kind of a cool idea. That spinoff where it was the actors were making the movie, and then Freddy was coming and haunting Robert Englund, Heather Langenkamp.
I don't think I even saw that one. Really,
it's pretty cool. It's a cool idea.
It's okay.
This is,
what was it called?
It's called
not the Dream Warriors.
It's called.
That was earlier.
No.
Yeah.
A New Nightmare. Freddy's Nightmare.
Oh.
Maybe a New Nightmare. But I think it's post Scream. So if you remember, Wes Craven, directed and produced first Scream, which was this sort of new take. I think is it Kevin Williamson who wrote those movies? It was a very meta sort of film. I think that's what it was. So it's like, hey, this is a new idea of thinking about horror movies, and that was Wes Craven's take on it.
Got it.
And then you had a crossover with the Friday the 13th franchise, and then a poorly received remake in 2010. So it's kind of they're going upstream or fighting upstream to get to see. And they've been talking about making another one or a remake since 2015, but as of 2016 or by 2016 already, it was said to be in development hell. Robert Englund said he was only interested in coming back in a cameo. He said he'd be interested in having Kevin Bacon take over as Freddy Krueger.
Oh,
that works for me.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if he's in makeup, I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I saw the one where Jackie Earle Haley plays him, the 2010 one, but I don't remember it. It's kind of forgettable. And he was a fine Freddy, I guess. He's no Robert Englund though. I like him, but
yeah.
But now the Wes Craven's estate is in charge. And so who knows what they want to do necessarily. They want to bring it back, but they had mentioned maybe as a series, and they would want Robert Englund to come back too. So,
wow.
All right. Hey, another 1980s news. Batman finally settles his favorite movie, Batmobile. So I don't know if you guys are fans of comics necessarily. There was a period of time where I read them, and then I didn't read them for decades, and then I started reading them again a few years ago. And then I think it was in the pandemic I stopped because I was getting the physical copies, so I would go to the comic book store every week or every other week and get my books.
What sorts of comics? Particular type?
Well, I mean, I was reading Batman, all the Batmans that were coming out,
right.
and all the Superman that were coming out.
Really? Okay.
And then there were some other ones, like there was some like what if type ones, sort of out of continuity stories that they were doing. Some of those I was chasing after. It's mostly what I was interested in, but they usually had Batman or Superman in them.
The only comics I've ever really read with any regularity, like I don't like superhero comics at all, kind of. Like you have to have no superpowers. It's more interesting to me. Okay. So I read stuff inspired mostly like pulp characters, Doc Savage and the Green Hornet and the Shadow and stuff like that. That's because they're just regular guys that are kind of busting their hump to try to, make it there. They're more, I guess they're more like Batman, who doesn't have superpowers per se, right? But, yeah. Actually, the Shadow came from inspired Batman, but that's a whole other story. But the comics are fun.
It's curious that many of the comics that you said that you're interested in or that you would read are similar to the radio shows that you tell us you listen to.
Of course.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Anyway,
I used to read comics a lot when I was younger, but it was a whole range. There was some superhero, the Archie comics, and Richie Rich. That was a favorite.
Oh, Richie Rich, absolutely. Yeah. Scrooge McDuck. I get those little digests at the corner grocery that look like like Reader's Digest size, and they're about a quarter of an inch thick, and it has like a compendium of 4 or 5 comic books in it.
Yeah, we had a couple of those laying around.
They're a cheap way to get a lot of comics.
There were some creepy ones too. We had 1 or 2 floating around that were, I guess maybe it was like Tales of the Crypt or something like that. Yeah.
Well, Tales from the Crypt. I'm trying to remember if the comic was even called that. I believe it, or maybe it was called Tales of Terror. But there were like 3 comics by this company that one of them, had the Crypt Keeper trying to remember. Or there were 3 types of Crypt Keepers. Anyway, those comics, my uncle had those, and he was like 6 or so years older than me, and he had those, and those always freaked me out. They were just so disgusting. It was just I have these images still in my head of like human parts in like a butcher case. Was one of the stories.
Yeah.
Wow. Yay.
Was that like Condé Nast or somebody that had all those? One of those old publishers, I think.
Yeah.
It feels like.
I'm trying to remember the name.
It's
been a while.
It's not a test.
Yeah. Well, we talked to John Kassir, the Crypt Keeper, a couple years ago, and then I researched it so I could know it all. And then I don't remember. I don't have a great reading comprehension.
I've used that information now. Purge it for me.
I need to be an expert for 45 minutes. That's it. So look, I'm not caught up on Batman, but I thought this was pretty cool because of my love for Batman and this one particular Batmobile. So in the latest comic issue of the series, that's Batman Beyond the White Knight. So again, at any given time, there's a few different Batman series running, and they don't necessarily intersect at all or the same continuity, But in this one, Bruce Wayne officially settles his Batmobile choice, and he's kind of forced to make this decision quickly because in Sean Murphy's run of the comic here, Batman, Bruce Wayne rather, has turned himself into the authorities because he's a vigilante. You know that, right? He's, often in the stories, he's being pursued as a criminal. Yeah. He's like Bernie Getz, but with money. So, right? I mean, come on.
Didn't Bernie Getz have money too?
Not
Bruce Wayne money.
I don't know that. Yeah. Bruce Wayne money.
Not Wayne Foundation.
But so he's serving a sentence in the Gotham City jail there. But there's a new Batman that appears, and I won't make this too, inside, but a new Batman appears, and so Bruce decides he has to break out of prison to keep Gotham safe from this other Batman. And there's reasons why he's dangerous, and his backstory is not necessary. But anyway, of curiosity too, is Bruce also has at this point an AI version of the late Jack Napier via a chip that the Joker secretly embedded into Bruce's brain years earlier.
The Joker did it.
Yeah. So, and I don't know, I'm guessing in this continuity, Jack Napier is the Joker. That's not always true in all of them. So I'm guessing.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah.
But at some point, so he hears his thoughts in his head, but at some point he's back at the Batcave fighting with this other Batman, and Bruce needs a quick escape, and Bruce and Napier in his head come across a garage full of Bruce's old Batmobiles, ranging from, and it's every incarnation of the Batmobile, ranging from the 1966 version, the Adam West TV show that we love, to 2022's Batmobile that was driven by Robert Pattinson, the film that just came out, a few months earlier. And while Napier is interested in the Dark Knight trilogy's Tumbler, if you remember Christian Bale's take on Batman, Bruce decides to go with the 1989 Batmobile from the Tim Burton directed films.
Keaton Mobile.
Yeah. Look, I love the 66 Batman. That's probably my favorite. But second favorite is 89. And that may be nostalgia, but I think more of it is the lines. They have very stylized lines where in Incarnation Since, they try to be kind of practical. Like Chris Nolan said, let's take a military vehicle and make it into a Batmobile.
And then from the Batman, the Pattinson vehicle that we just had, movie The Vehicle, and also the vehicle I'm talking about here, but it's basically like a really badass muscle car.
Oh yeah.
Right? It's not even a military vehicle, which that's probably my second after the 66 Batmobile.
Yeah.
I love the one from the Batman, the most recent one, because it just looks mean. It looks like an angry Charger. It's like if a Charger or a Challenger became a Hulk. Right? It just went, I'm a bigger car and I'm a monster car.
I pissed off my car.
It had those kind of lines and an angry grill and the headlights that are all kind of looking mean. I like that one.
Yeah. That's definitely my third favorite. Nice. All right. Hey, another 1980s news. Finally, per Deadline, Satanic Panic thriller gets straight to series order at Peacock. Peacock, that, I don't know, that's like an NBC streaming service.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Peacock has handed a straight to series order to Hysteria, it's called, with an exclamation point. Hysteria! A coming of age satanic panic drama thriller from writer Matthew Scott Kane to Dungeons & Dragons filmmakers John Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein. So we haven't seen Dungeons & Dragons yet. I'm hoping it's good because then maybe this will be good too. According to Deadline, this series would explore America's dark history of mass hysteria through the shocking story of the teenage satanic panic. The series follows a group of 1980s. Now see if this sounds familiar. A group of 1980s high school misfits as they exploit the growing hysteria around teen occult activity.
Yeah, it's slightly less strange things is what this series sounds like.
Just strange things, yeah.
Per the log line, when a beloved varsity quarterback disappears during the satanic panic of the late 1980s, a struggling high school heavy metal band of outcasts realize they can capitalize on the town's sudden interest in the occult by building a reputation as a satanic metal band. This is still a sentence. Until a bizarre series of murders, kidnappings, and reported supernatural activity triggers a leather-studded witch hunt that leads directly back to them.
Wait. A leather-studded witch hunt. I'm back in. You lost me and now I'm back in.
I know what you guys are thinking. I'm not going to say it. Per Lisa Katz, the president of scripted content over at NBC Universal Television, quote, our upcoming thriller series Hysteria will explore the complex world of the satanic panic set amidst 80s nostalgia, mystery, heavy metal, and an all-American setting. What is that? An all-American setting, damn it.
Has there been anything else about the satanic panic since the 83 Mazes and Monsters with Tom Hanks? I mean, that explored that.
Yeah.
But I feel like shortly after that, people went, maybe not.
Well, I don't even know that you could. Well, okay, I guess we have to clarify this because it may be related to what we're going to talk about in just a minute. You're saying it explored it, but Mazes and Monsters it wasn't about a satanic panic necessarily as it was born out of it, right? They made this film about something that people genuinely had fears about.
It wasn't analyzing whether or not it was founded or how it made people act. It existed inside that bubble, and you're right. Yeah.
So in that way, a couple of films we're going to mention in a little bit. Yes, I guess. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Although they may be more metaphors or hyperbolic sort of examples of that and not necessarily that one. That was like ripped from the headlines, that Mazes and Monsters thing. Somewhat. Right. I mean, it was based in part as on a real story. Anyway, does anybody not know what the satanic panic is? I mean, thousands of unsubstantiated cases of satanic ritual abuse started popping up around the country. Most of them, folks agree, started with, there's a couple of films that started people being afraid of this. And then this one particular book that was ultimately proven a bunch of bullshit, Michelle Remembers, where a woman said she, through hypnosis, she was remembering all the horrible things that happened to her when she was a kid. The doctor, her therapist wrote the book. Turns out they were dating. It turns out they were in cahoots, all this kind of stuff that made it. But it led to, lawsuits where you had teachers that were accused of having satanic rituals with their preschool children in court for years, defending themselves as a result of this, and a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah, it was almost like the Red Scare, but for the 80s. It's like everybody's guilty until you can prove that you're not, a Satanist.
Yeah.
Witch hunt.
Yes, a leather-studded witch hunt. I should point out.
Yes.
If any of this sounds familiar, it's still going on today. And there's folks that are smarter than me, sociologists, journalists, that say it never left. And the QAnon phenomenon today is, the evolution of that, where you've got, again, people saying that, literally saying children are being abused. There's satanic cults. There's no evidence. There never has been.
Lizard people.
You know what's crazy to me is when we were kids in the 80s, satanic panic, it was our parents that were freaking out about stuff. And we were the kids saying, it's just rock and roll. It's just Dungeons and Dragons. Calm down. With this QAnon stuff, that's our generation of people, right? So we went from being these people who are more cynical and discerning and knew they could spot like this kind of bullshit from it. Now they just suck it all up.
It's just some of them, not all of us.
Some of them. Right, the loudest ones.
It's depressing that Gen Xers are so gullible.
Something happens when you get older. Get more afraid, I think.
I guess.
I was always gullible.
Well, you're the QAnon member of our group. So, I mean, that makes sense.
Oh, no.
All right. Hey, that was, I don't know what any of this is about. That was 1980s news. Thank you. Hey, our independent podcast is brought to you every week by folks just like you. So if you'd like to help us out, please follow us on the podcast platform you're listening to right now. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Share an episode on Facebook. All of these actions just take a moment and are 100% free. But if you'd like to chuck in a buck and help us keep publishing the show week after week, please visit us at 1980snow.com/support to find out how you can send us $1 or $2. And thank you so much. It means a lot. Okay, so as I mentioned on today's show, we're going to be talking about 900 numbers. The creepy, the weird, the strange ones that were available during the Halloween season. And there's one in particular one that I took advantage of a lot. I called it many times. And I've got audio clips of some of the commercials to see if you remember them. See if they'll jog your memory of these particular numbers. And I've got super special audio or audio of something that I think is really neat that I'll play you later too. But, before that, I just wanted to mention, because I think this is an interesting little arc. And the information that I use on this episode comes from primarily two sources. When I'm talking about the 900 number history and a little bit about the film that I'm going to talk about, it comes from Satanic Panic, Pop Cultural Paranoia in the 1980s. It's a book I've relied on many times when we talk about the Satanic Panic.
Oh.
In particular, I relied on a chapter by Kevin Ferguson about the 900 numbers. And for the 900 numbers themselves, I relied on a list from the ghostinmymachine.com. So while regional 976 numbers were in use as early as the 1970s, the national 900 number was developed by AT&T to allow TV networks to take polls. I don't know if you remember those, in real time. So something would happen, dial in, they'd have results. And I think, I'm talking American Home, was it incompetency porn? American Home Videos, or what is it, America's Home?
You're talking about America's Got Talent?
America's Home Videos.
The Voice? One of those things?
Funniest videos.
Because I was thinking of that because they use those numbers to vote on those talent shows more recently.
Okay.
Now those are, I thought those were free, but maybe they're not free to keep people from voting over and over again.
They probably, I don't know, they switched to texting later. I don't know. I know they said charges may apply, but that might have been because you use your cell phone. But they did use it for voting, I know.
Well, originally they didn't charge these 900 numbers that AT&T developed for companies to use for polls, etc. They didn't charge a premium for these to use. But in 1987, AT&T changed that, and they allowed for higher rates to be charged, like $2 for the first minute, and then a cost of at each additional minute. And they began splitting the profit with the content providers. So if you were someone who created a 900 number, you could get like a 60% cut of whatever AT&T was raking in from the phone, phone consumer.
Wow.
So they were happy to foster it. They're like, absolutely, more revenue for us.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wish that was like a thing now. Like, we create podcasts. John's got a lot of shows on stuff on his YouTube channel. YouTube should just be, look, you first got to hit a certain threshold, and then they give you a pittance. And then,
they do pay you, just not so you'd notice.
Right.
I mean, look, Apple Podcasts would have zero content, but for the independent people who just are giving it whatever, these people. But anyway, so quickly, 900 numbers became a hot commodity, and you had everything from, callers being able to hear messages from Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, get sports tips, stock tips, psychic friends, and most notoriously, porn. Now that sounds like we set that up, but that's true. Right?
I never called a 900 number or a 976 number of any kind because I was petrified of running up the phone bill. Yeah. Because I had previously run up a giant phone bill with my modem calling across the next county, and I had a very solid memory of what transpired when I did that. So I was petrified of what I might run up if I dialed one of these numbers. So I never did. Yeah. But you got to take advantage of them because I guess you had not been beaten over a big phone bill prior to that time.
I was trying to think of this today because my parents wouldn't have appreciated either too. But I'm trying to think, these were in the late 80s. So I was like 17 or 18 at the time. And I think some of them, and I'm not positive, we'll listen to some of the advertisements from that age or that era. They had a maximum cost, some of them, so you want to hear a message, it couldn't be more than $3.50, so I probably just said to my parents, hey, I want to call this thing once this week. Is that okay? Whatever.
Oh, you asked permission.
Oh. Yeah, I wouldn't have. Yeah. Oh my God. I was terrified of my parents.
Oh, there we go.
And I knew it would show up on a bill.
Right. Yeah.
So you couldn't,
Right. Yep. And I'd like to know up front what 900 number I called before you get the bill. Right? It's like, what is young Will calling again this month?
Well, speaking of porn, we'll talk about the ones I really called. But the porn ones were intriguing to me. And in porn, it really was like, the commercials would be like a woman in lingerie saying, call to speak with me now. Are you lonely? And so I was curious as a kid. I remember, because some of these things you could dial and not get charged till like you made it sort of past a certain point.
Oh.
So like you'd call and be like, hi, to talk to Cindy, press 1 to talk. So I would just like hear that, like, oh my God, it's so interesting and exciting. And then I would hang up before anything would get charged. That was exciting.
That was enough.
But like I said, most of the ones that I did hear the entirety of things, because I did call these, were horror. Because again, I was into horror movies at this period of time. So And look, there's a variety of them, and we're going to go through some of the more interesting ones, a handful of them here. But and John, we were just talking about the Satanic Panic and this new show that's coming, and John had made this comment about or questioning whether Mazes and other films since Mazes and Monsters sort of maybe reflected the fears that we had, and yes, the answer is yes. And I mentioned earlier that there's a couple that I wanted to talk about, but fears of the devil invading every aspect of our lives aside, it seemed that we had a general fear of technology in the 1980s anyway, and probably because we were getting so much of it so quickly and so much of it seemed foreign, and we had a lot of these devices in our homes.
Or a Ouija board.
So, we had a lot of films that were portraying technology just generally as bad for humans, like Tron, War Games, Superman 3, that horrific scene at the end where the computer takes over and, makes a woman into a robot. Oh, it's terrifying. But their malevolence was due to, the cold rationale of their, ones and zeros, not some supernatural evil.
No, there's no demonism,
okay. Yeah,
right? It's just they're acquiring sentience, or they believe they know better, or whatever.
So when you add to that the Satanic Panic, we do get some films. They started seeing technology as a mode, a way of communicating with the devil. Where C++ now becomes the new Latin, I guess, for incantations, and maybe. And the telephone becomes the most efficient way for summoning demons. I mean, really, this is what these films are. So in 1989, when you've got the 900 numbers, which are, again, they're just ubiquitous, they're really popular, and you have this lingering effect of the Satanic Panic, you get a film and a corresponding phone number, 976 Evil, which, by the way, was directed by Robert Englund himself, Mr. Freddy Krueger.
I'll be down.
And he also does a cameo as the voice that you'd hear when you call 976 Evil. The film is kind of it's got some in addition to Robert Englund, it's got some other iconic 1980s performers. Robert Picardo is in it, who went on to great success in Star Trek and some other things, but he was in Howling, and also Stephen Jeffries, who played what was his name? Something Eddie. Crazy Eddie, not Crazy Eddie. His prices are insane. He was in Fright Night. So if you saw the movie Fright Night with Chris Sarandon as the vampire,
okay,
the protagonist of the film, his best friend becomes like the what's the vampire's right hand man who wants to be a vampire himself.
The Familiar.
Yeah, and in the Dracula novels, Bram Stoker, the guy's got a name and it's something.
Okay.
Igor?
Anyway, so Stephen Jeffries is in it too. So you got these few different people. The movie's not great. So so in this movie, just like some other films like this in the 1980s, you've got this nebbishy guy who's getting picked on and is looking for a way to avenge himself. And so ultimately, in this film, again, like some others that we have in here, including one at the beginning of the decade that starred Clint Howard called Evil Speak, you've got this guy turn to technology as a means of connecting with Satan and leveraging his powers. But in 976 Evil, you call this phone number and you get a horror scope.
Oh,
that's not my pun. That's right in the movie. And
no, it was a good one. We could tell
in the film.
Wow.
It was pre-written. The horror scopes in this film told the characters what to do to get out of their problem, but it was always doing something bad. So this guy need money. You could steal it from somebody, and ultimately they lead this Stephen Jeffries character down this path of evil. Ultimately, he gets possessed by the devil. It's cool. There's this creepy moment in the film where this detective trying to figure out what's going on, and he tracks down the company that's running this 900 number, and he visits with them, and Robert Picardo is the guy running it, and his name is Mark Dark. This film, by the way, just broadcasts everything.
Nice. Yeah.
Mark Dark is running it, and he's like, I do have a number like that, and he shows him the room, and it's dusty and filled with cobwebs, and there's like this series of like answering machines all connected together. He's like, I invented it myself, but I shut it down a couple of months ago. It hasn't been on.
The calls were coming from inside the house.
Anyway, so I say all this to say that in the late 1980s, around the time the film came out, we had 909 DARE. So I guess 976 Evil probably wasn't available. But much like in the film, you could call it and get a horror scope. And I have a clip of the ad here that promoted that.
976 Evil. See the terror in your local movie theater. Now hear the horror on your telephone. Dial this number for your horoscope. Eerie stories of horror and fright. Supernatural thrillers of evil in the night. The future was never so terrifying. Dial now. We dare you. $2 the first minute, 45 cents each additional minute. Children, get your parents' permission before you dial.
I think it's so wonderful that the terrifying man who made that message wants to make sure we get the rates and ask for permission.
Isn't that nice? Yeah.
And did he say call on your terror phone? I love that.
He has speech impediment, John.
That was fun of it. I don't mean to make fun, but it was a bit of a reach for it was good.
When I was a kid, just hearing those voices and the presentation and the images, this one had images from the film, but just creepy. Here's another one, a slightly different one. So when you called that one, like I said, you can get your horoscope when you called. I'm not sure exactly what.
Terror phone.
900-490-DEAD was a zombie hotline. If you called this number around 1987, you could hear a zombie. You'd either hear a zombie shambling toward you that would not necessarily ever arrive, or randomly you could be connected to a quote unquote live zombie.
Point of order.
Yeah. I made air quotes.
That's right. Right. Live in the sense that he's not pre-recorded, but okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Right.
Yeah.
The phone zombies are very, very dead. But they're not in their graves. And they're not walking the night. They're in the phone line and they've got your number! Want theirs? Dial 1-900-490-DEAD. Randomly selected callers get to talk to me live in the flesh. When you reach me, you'll wish you never called.
Only $2 a call.
They've got our number. Why are we calling them?
That was my question too. Wait, how did they get our numbers?
Right. Well, they've got the phone book.
I just realized that reminded me of when he started getting really worked up. He sounds like Pee Wee Herman. You know when Pee Wee Herman would get worked up?
I feel just perfect. In fact, I can't remember when I felt quite so cozy down here.
There was other numbers that were similar to that. One in particular, 490-CREEP, where you could you'd hear some kind of creepy sounds or otherwise be connected to a live creep.
Talk to me live.
Not all of them were spooky though. If you remember the original show, The Munsters, took place in the 1960s, but the TV family made a few comebacks since then, and most notably recently had a reboot on Netflix from Rob Zombie.
Yes.
But it was popular in the 1980s, and I think in large part because of two things. One, reruns, and two, sick days. So when I was home from school, it was Price is Right, Partridge Family, The Munsters. Like these were the things you lived off of, that and applesauce or whatever.
Yeah.
Pop-Tarts.
Yeah. Oh, Pop-Tarts.
But because of the continued rise of popularity of the show, again, Grandpa Al Lewis returned to host TBS's super scary Saturday movie block. He became like the, Elvira of TBS.
Right.
But he also launched a 900 number.
Hiya, kids. It's me, your friend Grandpa. I gotta tell you, I am starting a new club, and I want you to join. It's called the Junior Vampires of America. I mean, you'll hear scary monster stories. Now, to call, you gotta ask your parents' permission and call this phone number, 1-900-909-4300. You'll hear all about my monster friends, learn how to get a free vampire patch, and a list of special vampire tricks and secrets. So call 1-900-909-4300. Learn how to scare your friends, even yourself. Join Grandpa's Junior Vampires of America Club, and I will make you a junior vampire.
Hey, kids, call 1-900-909-4300. That's 1-900-909-4300 to hear Grandpa's scary stories and join the Junior Vampires Club. Just $2 the first minute, 45 cents each additional. Ask Mom or Dad first.
They had the budget to buy a whole minute of a commercial there.
Man.
Yes, I never noticed until this moment what a strong accent Grandpa has. Wow.
Yeah.
It never
Grandpa
occurred
Al was
to
from
me
New
before.
York, or Al Lewis, was from New York.
And is it the Junior Vampires Club or the Junior Vampires of America? So maybe one is the legal entity and then one is, I don't know.
Well, it's funny. Before I heard the whole ad, I thought he was even trying to distance himself from the character of Grandpa for legal purposes because he introduces himself, it sounds like, as Grandpa.
Hi, kids. It's me, your friend Grandpa.
Grandpa.
And he offers you, he says you're going to get a free vampire patch. But meanwhile, you got to pay for the phone call.
Yeah.
And I was like, to know what address to send it to, do they keep you on the line telling you the address or they can just keep running?
That's exactly what I was thinking. How long do I have to sit on there to find out what about the secrets and tricks and how to scare myself? And what about the damn patch? And come on. And
Scare
now it's been
myself.
15 minutes. I've spent $50.
You want the patch? All right. What is it? It's what was the number again? 1. Yeah. 2.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What was it again? 1. Right. 1.
Yeah.
I love how we can learn how to scare ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to know what that would be.
I don't know.
And you're just a kid, so it's not going to be like maybe your girlfriend takes a pregnancy test. It couldn't be something like that. Couldn't it be, look at your bank account? Oh, God. I should have saved. Here's another one. A company out of called Teleline out of Los Angeles ran a number of spooky hotlines in the 1980s. Some were like the others that everybody talked about, but others told awful monster-themed jokes. Their ads for this one in particular, which featured a skeleton puppet who sounds suspiciously like another tale-telling creature that was popular around this time.
Hey, I'm no numbskull, so call me at 1-900-909-2233, and you'll hear the funniest monster jokes like, what's a vampire's favorite sport? Basketball. Or the one about the ghoul who missed her mummy. You'll also find out how to get these scary street signs featuring my friends Dracula, Wolfman, and Frankenstein. It costs $2.45 for a 2-minute message, so ask your mom or dad if it's okay before you call 1-900-909-2233. I'm dying to make you laugh.
That laughing. He sounds kind of like, I don't know, Crypt Keeper's like lesser known brother that maybe owes him money.
Estranged
brother, yeah.
It sounded like you put the Crypt Keeper and the Joker like through the Brundlefly machine. What came out the other side was kind of half and half.
Funny enough, and I learned this from ghostinmymachine.com, that the phone number for the sponsored joke hotline was also the same one used to call He-Man earlier in the 1980s, which means that some kids may have gotten a true fright when they were expecting to talk to Prince Adam.
They were, yeah.
They heard this guy.
You did no cringer told monster jokes, did you?
This one was a kind of a more advanced taking advantage of technology. Was a line that allowed you to, quote, save Michael Myers' next victim. So Halloween 5 has now, like we talked about, it's been retconned out of the franchise, and it's probably one of the worst films too. But they had a devilish promo attached to the film. At the end of the TV spots, there was a box. So you'd see an ad for the movie, and then there was a box that said, save Michael's next victim, and there was a 900 number there. When you called the number, it led you on a sort of choose your own adventure kind of story that allowed you to, in theory, save somebody from the shape. The places you could visit, by dialing pressing the numbers were ones that were in the new film. That year also saw another film, it was a direct-to-TV sequel to the Amityville series. It was the fourth one. It was called the
TV.
Yeah, it was called The Evil Escapes. This is another one, like Heather Langenkamp's got to overcome the fact that her character was killed off. I think at the end of Amityville 3, the house is burned down.
Oh.
So I guess the evil could have resurrected it, or the evil escapes and now it's haunting a condo, on Montauk.
No, wait, I don't know if I watched the sequels, but at the end of the first one, didn't it like implode?
Oh, maybe it was the first one. Okay.
Yeah. Because, it like imploded on itself because I watched a special about how they did it. And I'm like, well, how did you even have a sequel? Oh, it's back. That's the scary part. The house is back.
Well, I know our friend Diane Franklin's in Amityville 2, The Possession, but that may be a prequel. Yeah.
Oh.
Huh.
All right. Huh.
I don't know. But anyway, they did something similar while they had a 900 number that corresponded with the promotion of the film. And in this one, I thought which is kind of silly was they give a little, the monster voice that's talking, whatever it sounds like, gives a little dig at the end at Freddy. It says, there's a line where the person says, eat your heart out, Freddy.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, finally was the one that I actually called the most, which was, there was an assortment of Freddy phone numbers. Again, you had no sense for how huge this film would be, the first one.
Yeah.
But the 1980s saw back-to-back sequels. 4 released between 1985 through 1989.
Wow.
And there's been several more since, of course. But
so now hold on. Did you say that the one we're about to hear is the one that you actually called yourself?
Yes.
Really? So have any of these previous ones, do you have any experience with those or just ones like them maybe?
The ads are familiar to me.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
But I don't have a strong memory of having called them. Freddie, Freddie.
All right. But this next one you do is actually one you called. Okay. That's, you got my attention.
Yeah.
I want to hear what Will called repeatedly to hear.
Okay. Well, there were different ones. So there were different ones. And well, in 1987, there were they were leveraging this brand. So they, just like we talked about, there was different takes on these types of 900 numbers and the kind of content you would get. So the Freddy, they tried a few different ones. One of them, you could challenge Freddy to trivia.
Happy Halloween, foolish mortals. Freddy Krueger has a special treat for you.
Challenge Freddy. Win up to $10,000. Even a chance to appear in the next Nightmare on Elm Street film. Test your nightmare knowledge. Dial 1-900-860-4FRED. See if you survive Freddy's boiler room. Dial now and play Freddy Trivia, but you better look sharp. Freddy doesn't take any prisoners.
What a rush.
$2 the first minute, $1 each additional minute. Callers under 18, get your parents' permission before you dial.
That's well put together.
Oh, yeah.
Did that happen that somebody won this and was able to appear, got their chance to appear?
Kat, I have no idea. That would have been a great thing for me to look up. It didn't.
Maybe I should.
Who won the Freddy Trivia Hotline thing? Let's see. I don't know. I'll have to. Maybe I'll tell you next time if I can.
Yeah, they said for a chance to win $10,000. They didn't say they were actually going to award $10,000.
Right.
0 is a chance, technically. It's
and it was a chance to be in the movie. So
it was right.
Actually happened.
If you can pass the audition, you can be in the movie. It was well put together, though. Like, it has a vanity number, not like the call 976-900-943. No, it's like for Fred. I'm like, that's cool.
Yes. Yes.
And they had a premise. There was something you could win. There was trivia. There was a chance to be in the movie. I can see why you would have called this one. I mean, this is pretty. Like this is much more compelling than the other.
I don't remember how I fared at Freddy Trivia, but there was another line which I don't remember calling this Freddy version, where you could theoretically, like the getting a live zombie or talking to the creep, you could actually maybe have the opportunity to speak to Fred himself.
Trick or treat, you foolish humans. Your worst nightmare has something special for you today. Dial this number now. If you're one of my lucky callers selected at random, you can talk to me live while you're awake. It's a dream come true, you and me. So dial this number now if you dare. Talk to me live. Freddy Krueger is just a phone call away.
$2 the first minute, 45 cents each additional minute.
I would not have felt compelled to be calling this number.
That voice is familiar. It's not Robert Englund. It sounds like an 80s era wrestler, like Sergeant Slaughter or somebody, doesn't it?
Hulk Hogan. Like maybe Hulk?
Yeah, somebody in there. It's got that kind of something about that,
I was thinking it sounded like Richard Mall in some film where they distort his voice. Maybe it's in a House.
Because it doesn't sound like Freddy. Did you just hear that voice going, when I get you in the ring, you're going to have a reckoning? Right? That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, because that was bugging me too. I'm hearing this like, why is that familiar?
Yeah, I know.
Yep.
The Freddy numbers, the number that I called the most, however, were ones where you would randomly hear a spooky story.
Okay.
And I don't know offhand how many variations of the story there were. But during Halloween's, where they had these numbers still, which again, it started in 87, I believe, and I believe they had it in 88 and 89, I would call until, in here as many as I could. Again, I probably asked my parents once a week, can I call again or whatever? Right. Or here's $5. I have a job now. I'm a man.
I want to call and listen to a wrestler talk like Freddy Krueger on the phone again.
And in the stories, Freddy was acted like the Crypt Keeper, where he would set up the premise and he would come back at the end to sort of reflect on what happened. And then there would be a narrator, or the person who the thing was happening to would narrate their own story.
Okay, so Freddy was not reading the story.
No.
Or telling the story.
Not usually. I don't know that he ever did. Those weren't the ones I remember.
Okay.
Now, guys, I have 45 minutes worth of these phone calls. Now, should we listen to one? It's probably like a minute and a half long.
Well, you have the audio of the call.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
YouTube has someone put together 45 minutes of them.
This is a special double album episode. I just would play the whole
Not
thing.
listen to all 45 minutes. But
I'm gonna after the show.
Okay, well, to give you a sense of what they were like, because John had mentioned that even the ads seemed well produced. They seemed pretty well put together.
The Freddy ones,
and to get a story, even a beginning, middle, and end of a story, a spooky story, in whatever time it is. So here's an example of what I would call frequently in the 1980s to hear.
Awesome.
It's time for another of Freddy Krueger's favorite bedtime stories. And this one's a dream. My kind of dream. The kind you don't wake up from. So listen.
When I opened my eyes, I thought I was having a nightmare. I couldn't remember who I was, where I'd been. Suddenly I was just here, where sulphurous air hung thick in a blood-red haze. And then I noticed the creaking wood. I was inside a ship of some kind, a hideous slave galley, miles long, filled with row upon row of heaving bodies, and I was one of them, naked, sweating, bound in heavy chains, rowing rhythmically and endlessly to a slow, agonizing beat.
Is anybody else thinking about porn?
I was thinking about you glistening.
Our warders walked among us, tall and terrible, faceless beneath their hooded robes. I heard a scream, and I saw them drag a prisoner to the middle of the ship, chaining his wrists to the ceiling. And then with barbed wire whips, they began to flay the skin from his bones, exposing every nerve ending as his body thrashed and twisted like raw meat in the air. Finally, they dragged his lifeless hulk back to the oars, and suddenly I knew the past. I saw myself in someone else's house, their money in my pockets, their blood on my hands, then the police, the bullets, a sudden burst of pain in my chest, and was this some sort of prison? I looked over at the flayed man, and in horror, I saw that his skin was whole again, and he was rowing, his hollow eyes resigned to an eternity of unrelenting torment. An eternity. Yes, I was in prison, but with no windows, no bars, no escape, sailing the seas of my very own hell forever and ever and ever.
This sounds like one hell of a pleasure cruise.
Step into a Slim Jim. Yeah. That reminds me in no small part of like 70s, 80s era, like CBS radio mystery theater, like the old radio dramas. It's very tinny because it was on the phone. So it has that, it has that very, very, telling you a story of back in the woods. It's that kind of like almost like a radio announcer sound. Do you remember? Maybe not this one. Do you remember any of the stories? The kind of thing
that one actually seemed familiar to me.
Really?
I listened to a few others on this, compilation, and there was a bunch that I was like, oh yeah, okay.
Wow. Did it give you the chills? Like, ooh, I remember that.
No, but it was that bizarre sort of thing where it's almost like time travel, where I can picture myself in my bedroom. I was lucky enough at some age that my parents gave me my own phone in the bedroom, because I think I had been stretching the kitchen cord as long as it would go, and finally like, we're just gonna have a line put in your room. This is ridiculous. So I have this image of being in my bedroom where I would stand, kind of, to be on my phone and listen to these things. Yeah.
Did you ever try to record them on a tape deck or something?
Yeah, I did. I did because, one of the things I did, again, because I had my own phone in the late 80s. So again, I was a little bit older and I was in high school, was make outgoing answer machine messages, right?
Oh my gosh.
And so for me, what they would be is like compilations of things, cartoon clips I liked mixed with Freddy Krueger or that, And I do recall once just recording a whole thing, and that was my outgoing thing as much as it would fit. Was like that Freddy Krueger story, as if you had called the hotline yourself.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't have many friends, so nobody was having to leave a message.
He did a mashup between a couple of different kinds of 900 numbers, probably.
Right.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, kiddies, what are you wearing? Press 3 to talk to Tiffany.
So, look, in the end, bringing this back to 900 numbers, in the end, it wasn't Satan that killed the industry. What's interesting is that while it often catapults the adoption of new technology, VHS, DVD, online streaming, porn actually caused the downfall of the 900 number. Well, that and disputed bills. But porn, because even though it was only a small percentage of 900 numbers, the major newspapers started talking about how children having access to adult content was a threat to children. And so in 1988, AT&T and other regional companies, under pressure from government regulations, complaint from parents and consumer groups, they stopped paying providers of some adult 900 numbers. So as I mentioned, they were to be cutting the profits. They just stopped paying these folks. And so they...
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And the phone industry, recognizing they had an image problem, removed all financial incentives. And in fact, in 1993, it became illegal to advertise 900 numbers to children under the age of 12, except for, quote, bona fide educational services.
How do you define educational?
Yeah, I know. They're learning about sex.
Seems kind of educational.
But second, as I mentioned, look, every ad we heard, the ads are instructing kids under 18 to ask parents for permission. Oh, that's what it was. I was 18, so it's like, fuck you, parents.
There you go. Do what I want.
The phone
I'll
number
do what I
says.
want.
Yeah,
parents.
But even though it said that, many of them didn't do it. So children could easily and unwittingly just rack up high phone bills that their parents would be forced to pay.
Yeah, you ask forgiveness, not permission. You're right. You don't ask to call because you can't uncall. I've already heard it. You get as mad at me as you want. I've heard the call, right? I was able to do it.
I came across a People magazine article from 1988 where one 15-year-old boy in Oakland, California spent $4,000.
Whoa.
In 1987, Pacific Bell in California refunded nearly $9 million to customers for party line bill adjustments, according to the New York Times.
Gracious.
Wow.
And federal and state regulations responded by requiring refunds and providing a way to block 900 numbers. But by the way, to block those 900 numbers, you had to pay $25 to the 900 number companies.
What?
Anyway, in spite of all these changes, it was impossible to address this new level of teleconsciousness. We thought about phones in a different way. They were no longer a passive medium where we just could connect with someone or get information, just like the time and the weather. Some folks, again, smarter than me, and I believe as Kevin Ferguson points out, that folks began to see the phone as a medium for satisfying some unfulfilled desire. Lonely folks could be on chat lines. Again, people, there's phone sex available. If you wanted horror stories, all these.
Right. The psychics were huge on the 900 numbers. You call and get your fortune read. It was nothing more really that I never called them, but it seemed to me just to be glorified horoscopes. Call and you'd push the number of when you were born. They're going to tell you, instead of reading the paper, but. Yeah, it's again, you're lonely or you have a need to fulfill, and there's another avenue to get to.
And people still do that with their phones. There's just a visual component now.
Yeah.
Now they don't call anybody; they just sit there and death scroll.
Right, exactly.
It was. You're right. It was not prescient, but it was. It was the beginning of that, of what where we're at now. And then in the 1980s, because I think ultimately, we're talking about these horror films or these films about computers that show our fear about technology. Ultimately, that's what parents are scared of, right? Phones provided a sense of, gave people agency. And to give that kind of power to a child, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
And something like Kat points out, something I'm dealing with now with my, certainly my youngest now. Yeah. It's even worse.
Right. You try to keep the kid in the yard and keep him inside the lines and make sure that, and now here's this thing plugged into the wall that gives them a direct conduit to something outside they don't have control over.
Yep.
And parents get afraid. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, let's call that a show.
We can call that a show.
All right. Hey, that's that.
Hey, our show is brought to you every week thanks in part to our early adopters like Kathy Burke, Rick Parker, and Karen Flieger. And thanks especially to our Secret of Our Success Level Patreon supporters, John Henderson, Craig Coletta, John Kominski, Marcus Taylor, and Tony Great.
And that is not all. Actually, since we last spoke, a brand new supporter has pledged his financial support to 1980s Now. Craig Anderson, thank you so much, buddy. Fantastic. Happy to have you on board. Thank you for putting your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
Right on. Thank you.
It means a lot, emotionally and financially. All right. Hey, we will talk to you again next time on 1980s Now.
Until next time.
See you later, guys.
This podcast is part of the 80s Ruled Network. Visit the 80s Ruled on Facebook for more 1980s awesomeness.